Okay, I just have one little story to share. When I saw this in the theater, the little boy a couple aisles down from me, just talking to his dad, but everybody could hear him. He's like, "Dad, I think Darth Vader would like this music."
That's good. That's good. I think everyone has a kid in the theater story from this. I've seen them all over Twitter. I had one myself where it was only one time like this. You could hear this one kid in the theater that was just talking and couldn't, had to talk out. And I thought it was funny because 5 minutes into the movie, of course, when you see this young boy who Batman resembles, says he looks just like what I went through, and he stops and he goes, "Dad, it's Robin." And I thought to myself, kid, I don't think you're getting Robin in this movie.
No, I don't think so, right? So, we're going to talk about another Batman, but I think this is actually authentic Batman.
Yeah, it's like a different take on Batman than any other Batman film, and yet it might just be the closest we've gotten yet.
Yes.
Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hey, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you to continue to support the show. We're on Twitter and on Instagram. You can follow us there. You can also contact us there as well. We do have a Patreon. Check that out as well. And we're going to talk about a movie that I think is my favorite movie so far of 2022, even though it should have came out last year, The Batman. Because, of course, I've been a Batman fan for over 40 years.
Yeah, you discovered him during Batman Forever, right?
Yeah.
Batman Forever. So the Batman, set during Bruce Wayne's second year as the Caped Crusader, Batman works with Lieutenant James Gordon to uncover the identity of a masked killer called the Riddler, who has been killing elite members of Gotham's upper class. As he gets closer to the answers, Batman is forced to confront his family's legacy within the broken city and his connection to the criminals he seeks to stop.
Okay, so September of 1990, Batman Comics came out with a very, very Saw-esque Riddler, where Batman had to solve clues and go through this very sadistic, very satanic rituals because he's dressed as a bat, and he would have to go to a blood bank and then he covered in blood. He had to almost lacerate a baby because she put a golf ball in a baby's throat, so he had to do a trach. And you realize all these steps were a satanic ritual that Batman had to do to lead up to for him to become this demonic person, really horrible person, and Riddler was actually the catalyst for that. And in the story, there's a loose, thin thread that the Batman and Riddler had a lineage, a history together. And I always, when the movie started out, I was like, this is very dark, this is going to be the Riddler. I think they're going to loosely lift up this version. It's not so much because there's a lot of mysticism in that comic book, but there's a lot of things I recognize because that comic book was the first time we saw Riddler go really super dark, when it wasn't campy and hey, I'm robbing a bank because I can, or something like that. But this is whoa, because it was a shock to our system how the Riddler can get really nasty.
Yeah, and so I'd also read that the main influences for the film that Matt Reeves took was Batman Ego, which I don't know anything about. And then I very much noticed a lot of elements of Batman Year One, because it feels like a sequel in some ways to Batman Year One.
Yeah, he hasn't got his full bearings yet.
And then it also, of course, The Long Halloween, which we've talked about, that other adaptation. There are elements at play here, even though it doesn't really take the same direction. We have that first killing on Halloween that kind of moves along the narrative right there. And those are the three I noticed. But like you pointed out, there's a lot of small send-ups to other parts of the Batman lore, and I think that's where that one probably comes from. But I also had seen that the reference to the idea of making the Batmobile just a souped-up regular vehicle was in reference to Batman 66 and how that was kind of like a regular vehicle that was just kind of
modified.
Yeah,
modified. Pretty much, it's pretty much an engine, 2/3 of an engine, and then this shell just
yeah.
Right.
And so I think that's what a lot of what Matt Reeves came to play with this film. And I went into this movie less as a Batman fan and more of a Matt Reeves fan. Every movie he's made since Cloverfield in 2008, I've been a very, very big Reeves fan. I think just anything he does, I'm like, okay, I can deal with this. Because I was disappointed when Ben Affleck walked away from the role. I thought he was a very strong interpretation of the character, something very unique we hadn't seen before. I really wanted to see his writing, directing, starring in that role. I know he walked away because, literally just mental health was not going to be in a good place if he kept playing this character because of the way that the online fandom was, because of the way that the studio was. He just had to walk away from it. So if we can't get an Affleck movie, this is probably the next best thing to what I would have wanted, which is a completely taking amalgam of the things that worked in Nolan and the things that worked in Burton and smashing them together.
A lot of critiques are actually using that's very heavily influenced of Zodiac killings, and I would say yes, you're right. Very much like David Fincher films, or Fight Club, and like seven, very much in the world where this, you don't want to live in this city. The city's going to actually, it contaminates you. Nobody's going to get out this pure at all.
Yeah.
Which I love. That's what I love about Gotham City. That's what I like. We're going to go dark and murky. Like, nobody's going to come out of here unchanged.
Yeah. This is the first time I really remember having an iconic Gotham City since Burton's film.
Yeah.
Because I'm really big on the gothic darkness of that city, and how, like, someone tweeted this weekend and said, why would you stay in this city? And like, that's the question I want to be asked whenever I see it. I want to ask the question.
Why would anybody, when Detroit was really bad in the 80s and 90s, why would you stay? Because you have care, right?
Yeah.
You're still there.
Detroit had one less Riddler, though.
And try to have a RoboCop as well.
There you go.
Yeah. So one of the things I always am a fan of Batman. It's probably led me to why I like noirs, and I think Batman is a little bit of noir. And I think you could put this into a noir. It is a combination.
Elements of it, yeah. I think it starts and ends very much more so than it does as it, like, especially in the middle section, but like right with those, like, the voiceover and
that's the first time we get Batman doing a voiceover, which is like, oh, this is very noir.
When I first heard that, I was like, wait, are we going to take a Harrison Ford Blade Runner like voiceover, or is this going to be? But like, I really enjoyed, and I guess that goes back to our original like talk, is Robert Pattinson as Batman. Like, I thought he was fantastic, but then again, I'm not someone to judge him for one movie role that a lot of other people seem to judge him for.
I was a little hesitant because we go from Ben Affleck, Christian Bale, and all that stuff. I was like, what is he going to bring to this? And he brings a very tortured person.
Yeah.
I think this is a right look for the film, that this guy is not going to have a good day.
Yeah.
And that's what we like about Batman, because I talked about it with a lot of friends. I think the first time we're going to see Batman, and his central core is he's very pissed off about the situation that he's in. He's lost his parents, and it plays out every day. And he's pissed off. What's the way you get pissed off? You dress up in a suit and you beat the crap out of people.
Yeah. Well, it's a Batman where I think, again, for the first time in the cinematic world of Batman, it's a Batman where he is Batman and he puts on Bruce Wayne's face to play Bruce
very
Wayne.
much out. Yeah.
You know, which we've always seen kind of the he's Bruce Wayne and he puts on the mask to become
because George Clooney was like, hey, I'm gonna date this girl. Oh crap, I gotta leave you to dress as Batman. Get out of here.
Yeah. And so it's nice to see that, a different interpretation on that, but then also look at, he's pissed off, but also he's perfectly comfortable with not making it home at the end of the day. Like, he's perfectly comfortable with going out swinging. And so, and so that's kind of the central character arc of the film, is he goes from a person, again, we're going to talk spoilers here, he goes from a person who is like living in vengeance to a person who is relying a little bit more on hope. And I think that's such a cool idea, because we haven't really seen Batman struggle for hope, even though he's been without it for most of the time.
And he's not going to be, right.
Yeah.
He's not going to be. It's not going to get fixed with just him. He knows that. That's the whole core of why I like Batman. He knows that he needs somebody else to fix the problem. And usually the story follows with Harvey Dent supposed to fix the problem.
Yeah.
And then things go really bad, which I like about the story, that he trying to hands off the keys and it keeps getting worse. And we know that about Batman, and I think the Riddler talks about it. You inspired me. Which talks about even in the video games. You created this escalation. They talk about Batman Begins. It's going to be escalation because of you. You amp it up.
Yeah.
And you become part of the problem.
Yeah. It's a central question that is plagued the entire movie through. And really, outside of the Lego Batman movie, we haven't had a Batman team-up that's done successfully in the cinematic world of it, because he hasn't had a team, like a living family that he's had to force to have, that he kind of gets in this film. You know, I like seeing him alongside Gordon. That was really great, because
I think they work really well. I would like to see the test
films. Yeah. And I thought that was really cool, is that we actually get to see them as partners. You know, it's like a buddy cop movie for a good chunk of it, because they are just working to solve this. And you've got kind of grizzled older man detective, like Morgan Freeman-esque in our Seven comparison, but then we've got the younger Brad Pitt.
Yeah, a little bit, right. That's I can see why I can see the resemblance of the movie Seven. Thank God we critiqued that movie before we saw this.
Yeah, so like people compare Dark Knight as being like Batman Heat. This is Batman 7. And I think that's a really captivating idea, is that he's kind of taken a lot of things he likes, Matt Reeves, and jammed it into a Batman story.
And I think it was a very weird beginning for a Batman movie, because we see, like, you have to have a grand entrance. We always see that with Tim Burton. You need to, like, punch in, put the signal out, and here comes Batman to save the day. And you have this very, like, we're starting the movie? This is really bizarre, kind of a bizarre beginning of a movie.
Are you referring to our introduction to Batman or introduction to Riddler?
Just start the whole movie, because there's really no, like, you just start the movie, and it's like the binoculars watching the family. It's like, is this like Bruce Wayne's family and all this stuff? So it's a really weird way to start a Batman movie. but then you get the narration, and you get like it's not a good day. It's a lot of rain, and it never is a good day in Halloween. And like we talked about it in a Long Halloween, there's a writing on the wall. It's Halloween every bleeping night in Gotham City.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
When it starts that way, I think I love, again, being a horror fan, I love that it starts out as a horror movie. Our introduction to Riddler is terrifying. Yeah. And, we hit a lot of horror beats early on in the film. We get our one and only F-bomb 10 minutes into the movie, pretty much. Because you know that he can get away with one and get PG-13
Well, I think we talked about that when we did Long Halloween, and we talked about that. He's going to dance on how close we can get to a horror movie as possible.
Yeah, and so I don't think, like, Matt Reeves has never struck me as a person aiming for R, but he struck me as someone who, he makes the movie he makes. If it gets R, it gets R. But he gets about as close as you can possibly get, and it doesn't sound like he made a lot of changes, but there's moments where, severed thumbs, people getting wrapped in duct tape, like, that's terrifying stuff.
That's not good. And I think a great metaphor for the movie is the bat light is just made from broken vines.
Yeah.
It's just broke. It's just twisted, which is totally different from Nolan. Nolan's a very clean, even though Gotham is bad and corrupt. They pick up the streets once in a while, pick up the trash a little bit in Gotham City. This one, it looks like everything is broken. Everything is corrupted.
A lot of flickering lights. A lot of everything in the city is it's just kind of
very much like the Arkham video game.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Very much. Yeah.
I think this is. So I'm not going to say bold out and say this is the best Batman. I've already heard people saying it's the best Batman movie ever made. I don't know if I buy that, but I would say that of the ways to introduce a character and have a unique tone, I love that we do have. There's elements of Nolan's film because it's more grounded than most other stories.
He's not sweeping in and driving his car. He's coming out of a door.
Yeah, and he's got a float suit instead of the wingspan. It's more grounded in that way, but it also has the kind of over the top characters of a Burton. Like we get. And
like we say when we critique art, where's your exaggeration?
Yeah, and so he's kind of allowing himself certain areas to go above and beyond. I think it's captivating because you want to see how far he'll push it into that realm. I've heard things like, I've always wanted to see a really well done Mr. Freeze in a movie.
I think everybody does. It's a very sad story.
And I just want to find out, is there a way he can make that work in a movie so we can see that?
If you do a sequel, I think this is a perfect realm, perfect how Matt Reeves is doing to interject Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
Because it's a very sad story.
Yeah.
I was most emotionally engaged with this movie when Catwoman left the refrigerator door open. They're having
pays for the bills.
We was paying. I'm an old man. Shut the door. What do you get? It's cold. Yeah. So that was kind of a little funny. If you're a huge Batman fan, you'll see a little bit of Easter eggs. I don't know if you watch other videos, but you notice that they mentioned the word hush, which really was part of an influence of that story. They also issue that Batman uses venom. He injects himself.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that is venom. It seems to be.
Yeah, so that's another Venom was introduced in the Legends of the Dark Knight, and then we know from later on lineage that Bane gets a hold of it, and Bane is the one in the comic book he uses to inject it right to his brain, becomes super stronger. Yeah. So that was really interesting to see that Batman already has his hand on this thing that he gets almost addicted to in the comic book. This is like 90s, but I was supposed to bring up this when I watched it. This felt very 90s.
If Nirvana was a superhero,
it's very grungy, right? Yeah, very grungy, very foreboding, very depressing.
Well, and alongside that, a lot of people are looking at things like that, things like Hush, and even things like, again, talking spoilers, our Joker scene at the end of the film. People are looking at that as a lot of setup for what's going to come next. And I read this really captivating interview with Matt Reeves where he said, that's not a setup. I'm not me just telling you this is what the next movie is. I'm just showing you that the world is bigger than this central story. There are other things going on. There's seeds of badness.
And you need a district attorney dead.
Yeah. And I thought, when the district attorney died, I was like, well, if it wasn't
we know.
Okay.
We know.
Which side hustle, that couple, Peter Sarsgaard and Maggie Gyllenhaal, hold a distinction. They've both been blown up in a Batman movie. But
that's yeah.
Date night, they just got a little bit closer there. But yeah, there's a lot of those elements where it's are we setting this up for a sequel? And he said no. He goes, this is purely just me showing the world that they're in. I'm going to use the elements at play here.
Money to be,
no, there's going to be a sequel, no doubt. Yeah. But I don't think we're going to see a Joker in the sequel. I don't think we're going to see Venom in the sequel, or any Bane, because it does seem like they were hinting at doing a Court of Owls film for the
Which is
second
very
go
interesting.
around.
I love that.
Which would be again, I like that Reeves is choosing the stories we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like I was just rewatching some of the X-Men movies the other day, and it's like, why did we go back to the well for Dark Phoenix twice? In 10 movies, why do we feel the need to go back to that same story? I don't really want to see a Harvey Dent movie in here because we've seen it
Long Halloween. We've seen it in Dark Knight.
Yeah, and it's like the same thing with the Joker.
It would be just nice if we just see, oh, here he is.
Yeah, even if he's in the movie or contributes in some way. But this was cool because this was one of the first times I remember seeing a Batman movie where Batman's the main character. Because the villains are so glorified.
I felt like a Batman movie.
Yeah, whereas we see the Penguin, we see the Riddler, we see Catwoman, we get hints at all the other people, we get like our human mob bosses with Falcone. Like, I think that's really cool that there's a lot of villains, but it doesn't feel overstuffed with villains.
Like the Arkham City video game.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I think the bat symbol, they don't really tell you, is a carved up gun that killed his parents.
Oh, the one in here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what he is.
Well, he grabbed it out as kind of like his...
Yeah, but I think
if
you look closely, it's pieces of a gun. So it looks almost like he took the gun that killed his parents and using it as a bat symbol. That's very meta.
Yeah, when they introduced the suit, I remember people were kind of discussing, like, is that what that is? Like, what element is that at play? And that's the only important gun, I think, in his history. So,
yeah,
that's probably the
one.
But
he doesn't use that. He's not going to use the gun. He's going to carve it up and use it
against,
yeah. Tool. Right, yeah.
So I think, again, there's a lot of those, like, wink, touch, nods moments that you see in the movie, and they're fun to dissect and see that there's a lot of care in the mythology of this particular iteration.
And there's some comedy. There's some time we laugh. It's not out laughing. It's just like, the engagements of him and Catwoman.
I think the biggest laugh in my movie came from Happy Effing Halloween right at the beginning. And then, again, when you toe the line of comedy and you do it just enough where it doesn't go into lunacy, I think my favorite comedic touch in the moment is after they've captured Oz the Penguin and they leave him wrapped up when they leave.
Oh, he got his little, he
waddles away.
He got his little thing. But I like that Matt Reeves shows these villains, they're pathetic. Which show in the comic books. They're not these grand scheming, super, they're kind of pathetic people.
Yeah, but no one has ever tested them before.
Nobody there. Yes. Yeah. And then it's nice to project that bad guys are bad, but it's not like like Moriarty, they're just really intelligent beings. Which we always showed with Riddler. He was so smart, but it's his flaw. He thinks he's so smart. Mm-hmm. And that's what gets him caught every time. And then we think the Penguin is so oily and he can navigate his way out of it, but he's kind of pathetic because you're a middleman.
Yeah.
No matter what you think you're just a handoff person.
Yeah, the Penguin is really, he's just waiting. He's waiting his turn, I guess, until he can claim what's going on. Falcone doesn't leave his basement, basically, unless there's an important thing like a funeral. He says, like, I've never been seen in public in this way. Even looking at the Riddler, he's got 500 followers, which we don't consider to be that many, but I guess if it's 500 lunatics, I guess, that's probably quite a bit.
Anybody has a social media account with less than 1,000 subscribers.
Check us out on Twitter, by the way.
You're right, yeah, you're getting worried of it. But it's supposed to be, it's projected, it's supposed to be a dark web kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. But it's cool that, all the villains, like, they have their piece of sadness to them, but it's their choice. And again, that goes back to even what we saw in that Joker film. He's presented in a somewhat sympathetic light in the Joker movie, but he's also making the choice to do bad. And
he's not grand scale like Heath Ledger's, like this massive thing. My favorite my favorite scene that got a chuckle is the bank, the cashier guy, the guy that robbed the drugstore, but he punked himself out and got hit by a car.
Oh yeah.
So he thought, oh my God, it's Batman. Yeah, he's not there, but Batman.
That goes back to the horror film opening, though, of like they're looking in the shadows for the hero, which is not something you ever see. In horror movies, they're always looking down the hallway, like, is there someone down the hallway? We're looking for the killer. We're looking for the bad guy, and I like that the switch that's made. That whole opening Batman. Of like you don't even see Batman for the first like 15 minutes of the movie because you just see shadows and he might be there.
That's the whole aspect of what he's doing. Being Batman is I'm in your consciousness no matter what you do. Whatever criminal act you're doing, I'm still in the back of my mind that I might be there. So even though I'm not really there all the time, you talk in the narration, I'm still in your head. And then he gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
Oh, he's there.
They're so nervous that they're literally wandering into traffic.
They do show that in the comic books once in a while. There's a bank robbery and they're like, is he? Check the doors. And they waste so much time thinking Batman's there, but he's never really there that they fumble it and the cops come and arrest him and then damn, but we didn't get nabbed by the Batman. They're almost sad about it.
Well, because at least then you have a good story when you're.
You got a good story,
like,
right?
Now it's just like I was picked up by the PD, like the crooked cops of Gotham.
Yeah. But this is very dark. We talk about another feature. I think The Crow. I think you have to talk a little bit about The Crow.
I heard references to The Crow. I didn't see it as much, but I haven't
well,
watched
the
The Crow that many
birds
times.
and everything was a bird, like Falcone, Penguins, and Batman's. And it'd be interesting to see how they maintain a certain thread through the next one, especially with Court of Owls being flighty.
Yeah, well, I was interested in the fact I liked that the mystery felt like one that I was going on with them at certain times. Because that whole rat with wings, I was thinking to myself, it could apply to Batman, it could apply to the Penguin, it could apply to and then when they finally said Falcon has wings, I was like, oh my god, are you serious? I was putting together things like, why didn't I catch that? The only thing I have a problem with is I was frustrated with, I have nitpicks about the movie really. I was frustrated that so many of the riddles were answered by the characters in the movie too fast. And it's only because I feel like those are opportunities to get your audience involved, thinking about them.
Yeah,
but he answers them so quick that I didn't have time for some of them.
That's why I like the Riddler, because he gives those and you want to solve them yourself before Batman does.
Yeah, so I hate to say that there's actually one thing that I think is better in Batman Forever, and that is just the fact that they give you a moment to breathe with those riddles to get your involvement in the narrative. And that's kind of where it comes down to for me is I think I have nitpicks about the movie.
It did go a little superhero-y, video gamey at the end there. But it's shot really well. We haven't talked about cinematography, but it's really well done. Like the day, even though but it seems like 4 a.m. kind of a shot, but that's wonderful.
Cloudy is the sun here.
Cloudy is.
It's Greg Fraser who did Dune Part 1 and of course had worked on Rogue One. So we've seen a lot of great genre work from Greg Fraser, in addition to just great work across the board. Yeah, it's a well shot movie. But yeah, so going back to a couple things that nitpicked me is I really liked how they used the shadow and the darkness in the action scenes. There was just a few times when those action scenes felt slightly repetitive because they used the darkness for them. And there's moments where Batman is willing to get shot in his suit. A lot of moments where he's willing to get shot in his suit. And I know that the idea is that he's willing to die doing this. He doesn't care. But it just happens pretty often where he's comfortable getting shot. Yeah. There's things like the explosion with the DA. He's a little too close to not have a scratch.
Somebody's been dealing with chronic tinnitus and a concussion. I had to hesitate with that one. The wake-up scene? I almost left the theater.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Goodness. See, when it hits HBO Max next month, you'll be able to pause or mute that part and move on. Yeah, it's a lot of just little things that I would nitpick about the narrative. A few choices in the
fight
story.
Scenes are very grungy.
Yeah.
Very much. But I like the velocity of this, of somebody who, once they start, like Batman, once he starts, he's not going to stop.
Yeah.
It's almost like somebody needs to stop him.
Pull him off me, yeah.
I do got that little, don't touch his ears. We all know that in comic books. You don't touch the bad ears.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, you can touch any part of them.
Having just watched that Channing Tatum dog movie where you don't touch the dog's ears either, I get that. I'm part of that now.
We all know about don't touch the bad ears.
Yeah, I liked a lot of how they used darkness in the action, though. The opening scene and being able to have the taser up against the guys who might be working for the Joker, we don't know. And then having that one, we saw it in the trailer, that scene in the hallway, where we just see the gunfire lighting up the scene. It's a great action piece.
Yes. Shot down really down. A little bit like Dark Knight Rises. A little bit, almost like when they shoot in the tunnels too.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about the very ending. That was probably the best Batman ending. I really did like the ending of this. Of the
motorcycles?
Where
I thought so too. I'm sad that we saw that part.
He entertains the idea. I could stop and go with this. The hell with it. And then you see him just single focus, which
you can tell the whole time he's driving that he's not sure if he's turning left or right at the end of that road. Yeah. And I like that because we look at Batman as being very much people criticize The Dark Knight Rises where he walks away from the Batman character at the end of the film, but he is at the end of this journey we assume that he's going to be a somewhat more normal part of society. He is he's going through the grief.
That's why I like this movie. I like it. It's probably my second favorite Batman movie because he's not going to stop.
Oh yeah.
He is singly focused. He's introverted. He's obsessive compulsive, and he's driven all the time. And I like that. And he's socially awkward. I mean, he's never had parents. He doesn't know how to really interact with people, which I like. The crime scene. He just stands there. Excuse me. He doesn't really say anything, which I love. They show that in the comic books.
Yeah.
So it's that little things that we like in the comic books that kind of play out. This high introverted, awkward, driven force maniac.
Yeah. And I think, and that's going back to using Robert Pattinson as your character too, is because he does understand kind of that awkward sensibility. You know, he's played a lot of really oddball characters in his time, and again, if you're just thinking of him as the guy from Twilight, you're not understanding that
Then you never seen Good Times.
Well, you're not understanding the problem with Twilight was not Robert Pattinson in the role. It was that nothing was given for him to do. Like, the screenplays were not good in those movies. The directing's not all that up to par. And, like, there's just nothing they can do in that movie. But, yeah, you haven't seen Good Time. You haven't seen The Lighthouse. I would argue Tenet. You haven't seen Tenet. I really liked him in Maps to the Stars, even though I didn't like Maps to the Stars. Like, he is a solid kind of a performer that is able to add something new to every single film role. And so that's why when they announced him as the new Batman, I was like, people are going to hate this, and I'm not one of them.
I was really hesitant. I was like, what are you going to do? What are you doing with this? But it's an authentic The Batman movie. The title fits. It's not about the villains. Yeah, we talked about it long, and I was careful because I always said you concentrate more on the villains, and then that's Batman. Matt Reeves proved me wrong.
Well, it's tough because the villains for Batman, they're the best DC villains, are the Batman ones.
Right,
you know, just like Spider-Man has the best Marvel villains. You can't really get out without that. You have to give some love and respect to them. But I will say the only real issue I have with this movie, the one that takes it from a 5 out of 5 to a 4.5 out of 5, is I didn't feel like we got enough Bruce Wayne. I wanted a little bit more because then we could see could see the difference in time. You know, when they
open a lobster troubadour in the microwave.
Yeah. When he gets home and Alfred's telling him that he's got a meeting the next morning. I want to see that meeting. I want to see how he's trying to fit into society.
Is it weird that it's 3 hours and we just didn't get enough?
Yeah. So it's a movie that I would like to see. There's things about it that I really, really loved. I never felt bored by the narrative.
No.
I just wanted a few other things. And that's my biggest problem is I'm complaining about not enough in a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
So, extended cut.
Yeah. So that my favorite movie so far is 2022.
Yeah,
I think Scream is kind of.
I think I had Death on the Nile as my favorite currently of the year, and so that just got knocked out.
Just like murder,
man. Yeah. I love me some
murder mystery. Okay.
It's Scream and it's Scream, Death on the Nile, and Batman.
So for me right now, top 3 would probably be The Dark Knight, The Batman, and Batman.
Okay. See, and I go Batman Returns.
People your age group like Batman Returns.
It was my first Batman movie.
It's a great intro. Great way to start the movie. You just stand,
But I also don't mind that it completely goes against the established mythology.
They're getting how close can we get to a horror movie as possible.
Batman Returns is an auteur take on a Batman movie, just like Matt Reeves. That's what I want, though. I don't care as much about like sticking to established canon. Because if I want established canon, I can pick up my copy and read the book. I want to see an auteur come in, someone like a Matt Reeves, someone like a Nolan, someone like a Tim Burton, and really put
Nirvana music into Batman. I never thought we could hear that.
So
put your list down in the comments. Sure, I don't care.
Yeah, let us know your comments on the Batman down below. What were your trepidations going into it? Did you have any concerns about how the film would turn out? Let us know in the comments. And give us your Batman ranking, because I guarantee you, I've seen some really hot take Batman ratings recently.
I'm surprised Batman Returns gets a lot of love, which is.
I've seen a lot of Batman and Robin love in people's rankings recently. I've seen a lot of Batman 66 love, which is really cool to see. Like, it's really great seeing a lot of these really wild takes. And if you don't follow Dan Merle on YouTube, he actually ranked all 44 Batman films.
Even the serials?
The serials, the animated stuff, everything. He ranked all 44 Batman movies on his YouTube channel.
That's Phantasm. I always forget about that. Is a marvelous movie. I haven't seen it. Yeah, we'll have to remember to critique it.
Let us know down below what you thought. And then while you're down there, like Nick pointed out, you can subscribe, and you can check out that Patreon. Tiers as low as $1, but at $5 or more, you can join in on picking our rotation of films. So if you have a Batman film we haven't talked about yet, now's the time to join the Patreon. Nick, where can we find you?
You can find my podcast, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts. And before we go, I've always said Batman won't kill you, but he'll feed you your kneecaps. I'm convinced this Batman definitely will not kill you, but he will cut your kneecaps and feed them to you. That's how gritty he is.
Well, on that note, you can find all my film reviews at gofilmreviews.com, and you should probably stop watching this video because there's 2 guys in Batman garb, and one of us might be Batman. We're not saying we're Batman, but you've never seen us alone in the room with Batman, so
we're not nervous.